We're getting closer, T-minus, I don't know, about a week or so before the NBA playoffs get here, and we've got some updates on what is an absolutely loaded slate here tonight. We're going to break them down for you here. We're going to see if we can't find a couple of plays. The contrarian gods may, in fact, also make an appearance here, and more importantly, your questions, guys. Those of you that are looking to invest into the association here tonight, if you got any questions, drop them in the chat room here as we are live on this afternoon update on this Tuesday now, April the 9th, as we welcome in the one and only Mr. Rob Veno in the house here. And Veno, it'll be you and I and the chat room, and those of you joining us here live today. And don't forget, if you're watching this on replay, make sure you check out the description. We've got links to all the game breakdowns here and best bets from across WagerTalk.com. So if there's an in particular game we don't get to, I am sure it's in the description. Check out those links in there. And Veno, I don't see UConn on the board, so we can't pick them. Although there's plenty of value, I think, on somewhere else on the board here today. And I'm going to start with the contrarian gods because the gods are a little bit concerned here that Anunoby, I guess, was signed on to go here tonight for the Knicks. And it looks like everyone is just absolutely convinced that the Knicks are going to win this game. This thing is opened up at 4. It's now up to 5 with a total of 212.5. And with Anunoby back on the floor, I get it. But I'm not really seeing a whole lot of craziness outside of, guess who, Caruso on the injury report. I'm not seeing a whole lot else here. So are we not giving enough credit to the Chicago Bulls at home here? Are we giving too much credit to the New York Knicks? Because the contrarian gods seem to think maybe there is some value in backing the Chicago Bulls here tonight.
And there could well be, Joe. I mean, Chicago's still in that fight with the Atlanta Hawks in that play, and who's going to be home, who's not going to be home. So certainly the Bulls, a couple of quotes from players, DeMar DeRozan, the most important player on the Bulls, and their head coach, Billy Donovan, obviously another important figure for that team. Not happy with the way they played in their last game and looking for some sign of consistency here. To put it in DeRozan's words, DeRozan said, we have to play with a desperate mindset, dive for every loose ball, and just play desperate right now and get things right. So I would expect that kind of effort from Chicago here. They played the Knicks, lost, won 108-100 the last time they played. And I think the key, Joe, even beyond side, I think the key when Anunoby comes back and plays for the Knicks is I immediately look to the total. They're just two different teams, right? Without Anunoby, they're nothing but an over machine. And with him, they're an under machine. The defense goes south. And granted, some of that is because Mitchell Robinson hasn't played in games when Anunoby hasn't played as well. But still, it just seems like the defensive effort and the amount of points scored by the opponents come way down when OG is on the floor. He'll be there tonight. It kind of has a playoff atmosphere to it, so you could take that into account and maybe figure for longer possessions. Neither team moves the ball up the court and to the rim very fast, so probably less possessions here. I would probably take the contrarian side and think that this is too many points for the Bulls, who have won 2 of the last 3 against the Knicks. And I would also probably look toward under. I think that when I checked right before showtime, Joe, I think it was 213.5 down to 212.5. Don't know if it's moved since then, but 212.5 seems a little bit high since the last game they played. Anunoby was in the lineup, and they only scored 208 combined.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean, like you said, 1.5, 2 overnight. Now Anunoby looks like he may go, and then all of a sudden now the market is just rolling with the Knicks on the road here. Usually we see that kind of move, when there is, a big injury. Maybe DeRozan would have been out. I would have thought with there's some kind of move here that Chicago would be missing some guys. But, I mean, Caruso is always a game-time decision, it feels like. Obviously, it'd be great if they could have him so somebody can guard Jalen Brunson. But usually don't see that kind of big of a move without there being some sort of injury that we learned about with Chicago, and we've got nothing. So that's all we got here. I mean, that's why the contrarian gods are looking at the Bulls getting 5 at home here tonight against the New York Knicks. Welcome in those of you joining us live, by the way, here to the NBA Afternoon Update, WagerTalk.com. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Make sure you get that thumbs up if you could. We'd certainly appreciate it. As Joseph Gomez in the house, Gary Walker here on YouTube Shorts, Have, Big Daddy in the house, Anthony Thornhill, ready to roll here today, guys. And don't forget, we got a poll question up and would love to know what you guys think. And I'll give it to you here, Veno, before we get to this absolutely abomination of a line flip here, because it involves one of the teams on this poll question. So, Veno, if the playoffs were to start tomorrow, which team do you trust the least? The Bucks, the Clippers, the Cavs, or the Phoenix Suns? That's the poll question here today. And I bring it up, and you guys can go ahead and vote. Those of you joining us here on YouTube Shorts, as well as our YouTube channel, as well as Instagram, welcome in and a very happy Tuesday to you. But, Veno, let's talk about these Milwaukee Bucks here for a minute, who, by the way, it does look like Giannis is a go here tonight. And it looks like Lillard a go. It also looks like, per the last injury report, that it looks like Patrick Beverley is a go. Al Horford, Porzingis, the one's out for the Celtics. This is a 4-point move, -2 for Boston. Now it's -2 for the Milwaukee Bucks. Are you buying this this big a move? How in the world do you trust the Milwaukee Bucks right now?
Well, you can't. Even though the situation, Joe, the spot would scream Milwaukee, right? I mean, the position that they're in, a shot at Boston, looking to get things right. Everybody's playing for that reason, right? All of a sudden, Damian Lillard can play, Giannis can play, Beverly can play. Everybody's playing because they want to put their best foot forward in this game. But do they just flip the switch and all of a sudden become what they look like they should be on paper? I can't trust it. And certainly Boston has been incredible, whether home or away. And in this spot, the question with them is, do they even really care? So you have to worry about them. They're in such a good position right now, but they seem to have cared all season long, right? It's a legit question to ask. Do they have the motivation to win here? But after one of the recent Boston losses, I think it was the one where they blew the 30-point lead against Atlanta, Jason Tatum, and really the loss didn't hurt them whatsoever. But boy, they were upset about losing that game. So upset that they came back and lost again to the Hawks. So I don't know. I think this is a national TV game, Joe. Am I right? Is this a Tuesday TNT job?
Yes.
I think this might be. And normally all these stars want to play in that type of game. But to your point, it's impossible. I don't care what Milwaukee's quotes are. And boy, Glenn Rivers, we're going to refer to him as Glenn until something changes here. I'm so glad he is righted the ship in Milwaukee, Joe, because 4 consecutive losses, 3 miserable teams that they lost to. Giannis seems to be doing all the talking now. He looks to be a little bit upset, but still, these quotes are worthless until they start winning. If I had to, I would look Boston's way here. I do think that, it's hard to think that Boston's going to be stopped by this Milwaukee defense, which hasn't improved an ounce since Rivers took over. So maybe the total's correct, but I don't have a wager on this game, but I would look towards the Celtics. And poll question, I would least trust the Bucks out of the 4 options given.
Yeah, I just can't. You can't. By the way, we did see line movement here, guys. It is starting to creep up closer to 3 now in a lot of spots. 2.5s popping up all over the place for the Bucks. Jaylen Brown was announced in, but it looks like Porzingis and Horford will be out. I don't think it makes a damn bit of difference. And here's the other problem, Veno. They're calling it a hamstring with Giannis. What do you think? You rub some dirt on that and that gets better? Right. Like, I mean, that doesn't get better. And so I think they have a decision to make, because Orlando and the Knicks are right on their ass right now. That number 2 seed is not anywhere even remotely close to being guaranteed to Milwaukee. When you go, 1-6 straight up and against the number in the last 7, there's a bit of a problem here. And now the injuries are starting to pile up here. I'm going to be real interested to see Giannis here over these next couple of games, because as far as I know, the only thing that can help a hamstring is not being on it here. You know, they tried that, but they've been a disaster without a combination of those guys on the court.
No doubt, Joe. And let me just say, I don't doubt that their mindset is they want to come out and, you know, make some sort of statement here by beating Boston. But whether or not they can do it or not is another question entirely, because they haven't shown us they could do it but once or twice since Rivers took over as head coach. To your point, though, about that 2 spot being way up in the air, there's potential that Milwaukee could fall all the way to 5 before this whole thing is over with and not even have a home floor advantage. So I think that's the desperation we see with everybody on the active roster tonight. If they don't get this game, Joe, I'm not in their locker room, but this would be my guess. If they don't get this game, which it seems like they want really bad, they may go out first round of the playoffs, because there might be some stuff being thrown around the locker room if they don't win tonight.
I don't know. Is there anybody else they can fire? I don't know. We'll see what happens. Maybe there's somebody who handles the balls in there they can get rid of, because this team blows. We do have a couple of other interesting games here tonight that have a little bit of juice. I'll mention it. I'll get it out of the way so our producer Robert doesn't hate us. But the reality is the wheels have completely come off the wagon here with the Houston Rockets. My goodness. 1-5 straight up, I think. 0-5-1 against the number in the last 6. They've lost 5 straight heading into this game again with Orlando. Yikes. I mean, just when we thought things were going well, no, not going well anymore. And by the way, not great for Orlando. Jonathan Isaacs and Franz Wagner, I believe, were questionable, and I still think they're questionable here, Veno, unless you're seeing something else here. Nope, still questionable here. But my goodness, I mean, you just mentioned it. Orlando is battling right now, maybe a 2, maybe a 3 seed in their future. They've gotten out of the 5 seed. They're pretty much kind of firm in that number 4 seed here. The whole point is want to try to stay as far away from Boston as possible here. Well, do we have enough faith in Orlando to go on the road to Houston and win this game? Because the market, let's see what we got here. 2.5, now 3 is what they are laying. The total is also moving here. 215 I'm seeing, Veno. Do you have any faith in Orlando in this one here tonight?
Well, probably. Well, first of all, you need Franz Wagner. I don't think there's any question about that. He's so important to that team offensively and defensively, and that front line is different, the starting front line, when he's not available. Certainly their front line would have an advantage over Houston here. You just can't like what you've seen out of Houston, though, right? The head coach comes out and tells them that they're basically soft. And the last 5 games, when you look at what they've allowed defensively, 51.6 from the field, 53-2, 58-8, 54-1, and 49-4, 113 or better in every game. We won't count the full 147 given up to Dallas because it was double overtime, but still, they had their opportunity. It's gone by the wayside. How do they want to close this thing out? I'm not sure. Honestly, Joe, it's a young team. It could be fragile when your head coach is telling you you're not, you're one thing or another, and both are negatives. That can't be good. It certainly didn't light a fire under them, although they did play very, very tough against Dallas. We don't want to take that away from them, but it didn't result in victory. For Orlando, I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. It was Wendell Carter Jr., I believe, who said that their entire goal now is to push for home floor in one round of these playoffs because their home crowd makes a huge difference. They wound up losing that game, but since then they've been very, very good. It's a good defensive team. Rockets haven't been playing good defense. So for me, it would probably be Orlando or nothing. But the biggest move in this game has been on the total. I think the total shifted 4 points toward the over, which you generally don't see in an Orlando game, but Houston has pushed pace for the most part the last 30 games. So maybe I could understand that, especially when you combine it with the fact that Houston's just giving up a high percentage of field goals. But again, if you don't have Franz Wagner, I don't know that I would agree with that either. So we'll have to see. Again, like the NBA is every single night, Joe. We got to sit there and wait till maybe 6:30 Eastern time before we know exactly who's in these games.
I agree 100% here, Veno. The total getting some love, though. I know Big Daddy in the chat leaning over 215.5 there with Houston and Orlando here. I would like to see if Wagner was in. That would be, I'd feel much better about that. But we got a few other games here, Veno, in which we've seen some movement here, including with my Miami Heat here, who were as little as 2.5 last night, got the 3 this morning. Now it is 4. And of course, there is all sorts of reports saying that maybe Trae Young working his way back will maybe possibly be there for the postseason. In the meantime, we've got Rozier is still listed as questionable. Duncan Robinson out with a shoulder injury. But of course, everyone else from Miami is good to go. But we're starting to see this one creep towards Miami. I'm seeing 4s now with the total dropping from 223 down to 219.5 here. That was a rough one against Indiana with the refs there for Miami the other night. But what are you thinking here, Veno? Miami in Atlanta here. Boy, they could really use a win, though.
And they've been trending over, Joe. 7 of the last 8 Miami Heat games over the total. I think we talked about it last week on the show. It's been a long time since they've had a cluster of shooters on the floor at the same time. And granted, Duncan Robinson is not going to be involved tonight, but without him, they still have enough. The question, of course, is going to be Terry Rozier. I believe he did not go through shoot around this morning, but then after that, news came out. It was then posted that he would be a game time decision. So we'll see. I would love to play over in this particular game if, in fact, I knew Rozier was playing. The Hawks come off 2 really bad road performances offensively. The last 2 games they were out there against Dallas and Denver. Shot 40% in one, shot 42 in the other. They had been playing very, very, very good offensive basketball. Quinn Snyder commented on how they were sharing it and how it was looking so much better. And it was production-wise. So I think Atlanta could have a little bit of an offensive bounce back here in this game, even though it's the first home game after a road trip. The road swing was only 2 games, I think. And everybody had the day off yesterday. But I'd like to have Terry Rozier, just like we said in the Orlando game. You'd like to have key parts involved before you pull the trigger. Number where total is concerned went from 221.5 down to 219.5. So, I mean, it's kind of contradictory, right, Joe? We see Miami going up, which would suggest to me that Rozier is in, but then we see the total going down, which wouldn't make any sense if Rozier is in. So, you're kind of in a quandary here as to which way to play it, but I would like to go over. Certainly, Eric Spoelstra made this move last year, where he said we need to play better offensively, a little quicker, and Miami started rattling off overs. Same kind of thing this year, 7 of the last 8 up and over the total for the Heat.
Yeah, and it's interesting, too. I can't wait. I hope they're around long enough to figure out what the hell they're going to do with Trae Young, because the numbers speak volumes. I mean, Trae Young goes out. The Hawks are 12-10. Straight up without him, 11 and about 500, I guess, ATS without him. But at home, they're 8-2 straight up and 7-3 against the number. They're a much better team at home without Trae Young. It's kind of mind-blowing, but it is what it is. They're a different style team. And now all of a sudden they have an opportunity maybe to get him back. Motivation, as far as that goes here, Veno, in the final week, both of these teams are still motivated. It's not like Atlanta's just happy to be, in the final play-in game. And Miami would probably like to host the play-in game if that's the direction that, in all likelihood, it looks like it's going to be.
Yeah, and Coach Spoelstra actually last week indicated that getting to the sixth spot was a goal of theirs. They'd rather avoid the play-in altogether, and it's not like they're way out of it. They're a game and a half behind with 6 to go, so they could still get there. That's why the loss the other night was so critical for them, but they can still get there. It's funny, Joe, when you mentioned Trae Young, and I think Quinn Snyder hit it on the head. I said it earlier, but he mentioned that the offense was ball sharing and it looks so much better. And when Trae Young comes back, that ball sharing ends right then and there. And guys like DeJounte Murray and the rest of the guys, Bogdanovich, who are really flourishing without him, probably gets a little stagnant. So I don't think that bodes well for Atlanta, especially in what looks to be a one-game play-in for them. If they finish 9th or 10th, you only get that one shot to try and win a second game to get into the playoffs. So that is going to be interesting to see what they do with him, if he's ready to go and if they choose to use him or not.
Yeah, I can't wait to see what happens here. But again, this was 2.5 overnight. It's up to 4. So if you're going to get to Miami, and I don't think there's going to be any well, you never know. I don't think there's going to be any stubbing of the toe in this one here, because Miami certainly would like this win. So I don't expect any last-second Jimmy Butler, I got a hemorrhoid issues here. I think that we should be good to go here in this one. Just a quick reminder, those of you joining us here live today on this Tuesday, we appreciate it. Don't forget, hit that thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And if you're catching this on replay, check out the links in the description below. We've got individual games broken down, best bets, game previews. If there's a game that you're looking for, I promise you it's in the description. You can check those out from any one of the WagerTalk handicappers here. We got all those previews up and ready to roll for you, including... Well, actually, it's not, which I think this is going to be very interesting here, Rob, with this game coming up tonight. The Golden State Warriors and the Lakers are going to be very interesting here tonight. I'm wondering how much of the Golden State Warriors, because we saw a big move here, I believe on the total. 4 points from maybe even higher than that, than what we saw last night. Because now we're seeing 235.5. I saw 231s last night. So there is a big move here. Wiggins active, Kuminga back active, LeBron, shocker, questionable, Anthony Davis, shocker, questionable. Gabe Vincent has been cleared to play in this one. How do you like that, S. Warrior? Gabe Vincent wearing a Laker uniform. Wonder if you're going to be wearing that tonight during this game here. So I get it. I guess we're starting to think that maybe points are coming, a little less defense for these teams. But correct me if I'm wrong. Golden State, as of late here, over the last month, really, it's been the defense that has kept them afloat here, right? It ain't the offense. It's been the defense here. And I'm wondering, are we buying Golden State on the road against the Lakers? Because it feels like a coin flip kind of game, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it certainly does, Joe. And there's implications here that maybe, let's just start with, they're both highly motivated. No doubt about it. LA could climb the standings still. They could get out of this 9-10 game if they continue winning games. But for Golden State, they would win the tiebreaker with the Lakers if, in fact, they win this game tonight. So if it does wind up, that they're 9-10 and they face each other, Golden State would get it at home, winning the tiebreaker. So it's really, really important to them. A couple of quotes here real quick from them where they believe, and I'll just paraphrase here rather than reading the whole thing, but they believe that they're playing their best ball of the season. And I think it does come on both sides of the floor, Joe. Obviously, the defense has been really good, better than it had been all season long, but the offense has been good as well. And one thing the Lakers have not done is show us any form of defense. So the 235.5 is probably justified because the Lakers are scoring like crazy. And the Lakers generally defeat Golden State. There's such a height advantage here. And Anthony Davis, surprise, surprise, the eye injury is not that bad anymore. I was reading an article this morning where it said they almost use these minor injuries as load management excuse, like second quarter up, got poked in the eye, can't play anymore, just to keep Davis fresh for the next game, which now becomes Golden State. I think that Golden State, for me, their team total was listed at 116.5 here. And I really can't see a way where they don't get to 117 the way they're playing right now. And you combine that with the Laker defense, it's probably going to be a high-paced, high-scoring game. Both teams have offensive advantages. One is quicker than the other. One is bigger than the other. So I would look that way. And I think if you're playing side here, again, the implication is strong for Golden State. And they've been a better road team lately than home. And again, you see some guys out there saying that Steve Kerr basically dogged it with their road performances until they were necessary. And now all of a sudden they can't lose on the road. So I think Golden State may have been sandbagging a little. Of course, they had their issues for sure. But I think 116.5 is attainable here for Golden State point-wise.
Apparently, there was a strong gust of wind, Titan CT is saying in the chat room, and AD had to call an ambulance. It was a little too much on him. He might have pulled something there with a strong gust of wind. So I hope AD is okay. But to your point there, Veno, think about it, too. The Lakers really didn't have a choice, right? So they had to say, screw the defense. We need to score. And I think they're on a 10-6 or maybe a 10-5 run to the over here over these last, dozen and a half games or so. And this is going to be interesting. It does feel overwritten all over it in this one, too. And that's going to be 10 o'clock Eastern time tip on that one. Again, opened up about 1.5 for the Lakers. We're now seeing 2.5. Kuminga has been cleared. He's a go in this one, so they are a little bit healthier here, the Golden State Warriors, and it does look like we've got some Golden State love in the chat room too as well there, Veno, that maybe Golden State might be the side, not necessarily the Lakers here tonight. Once again, big shout out to those joining us. A quick look at today's WagerTalk NBA update poll question. Which one of these teams, if the playoffs started tomorrow, do you trust the least? 37% right now, Milwaukee Bucks. Clippers, a close second at 32%, followed by the Cavs. And then only 10% for the Phoenix Suns here. Veno, what a difference a couple of weeks makes here, because they would have been at the top of certainly my list, and I know your list. That would have been no way did we trust anything the Phoenix Suns were doing just 2 weeks ago. But this is also one of the biggest line moves that we've seen so far today. This thing opened up 3.5, 4 last night. I'm seeing 8.5 now for the Phoenix Suns. Why is that? Well, Harden is still listed, I believe, is questionable. And I'm looking at the latest report. So Thies and Harden still questionable. Nurkic is questionable there for the Phoenix Suns, and that's it. But what a big move this has been here, up to 8.5. We know Kawhi Leonard is still out, right? But my goodness, LA 8-3 straight up, but just 4-7 against the number in the last 11 games. That was a hell of a comeback against the Cavs over the weekend, but let's be realistic. What in the hell were you down that many friggin' points for to begin with, LA? Like, you got to be kidding me. So do we trust this is a lot of points for a team that has shown they can come back? I guess the question is, do we trust the depth of the Clippers to be better than the depth of the Phoenix Suns and to win this game when it matters here? How would you approach this one?
Well, there's a couple of ways to look at it. If James Harden doesn't play, that means probably 10 more minutes of game time where Russell Westbrook handles the basketball. So do you want Russ? Want Russ? But generally, when Russ is involved that much, you want to look toward the over right away. So certainly we'll keep an eye on Harden. It's interesting because I think they play back-to-backs, Joe. If I'm not mistaken, I think these two teams play again tomorrow. So that may be the reason why James Harden, if he does get scratched tonight, I would expect to see him tomorrow. The Clippers did exert an awful lot last game to get that victory, and the Phoenix Suns are the worst fourth quarter team in the NBA this year, minus 200 and something points in the fourth quarter. So can you trust them laying 8.5 against a Clipper team, which, one of their assets is their depth, right? They've got a lot of guys. They can go 9 deep. So a lot of times one injury doesn't hurt them, but no Kawhi and no James Harden. I can see why the injury chasers have pushed it this high up. Question becomes, is it too high at this point in time? I don't know how much LA cares. Honestly, in this one, they could, I think, cinch that 4 spot. I had a whole playoff scenario. Let me just see here. Well, actually, the Clippers could clinch their playoff berth with the New Orleans Pelicans loss. But
yes,
I'm looking for whether or not they clinch number 4, which is home floor. I think that's much more important to them. So it's still reason to play. I'd probably look over just because if Harden doesn't play, the game tempo goes way, way up. And Russell Westbrook just equals points for both sides.
Yeah, well, you're right about that. But let me ask you a question now. So if I'm looking, if Harden does say, I'm in, and where's this now? 8.5 here. What are we thinking we're going to get if Harden is gone? Are we going to go back to what, maybe the 7, 6.5, 7 there? I know if Eric Jones in the chat room there on his cell phone there on YouTube Shorts, he's already got -7 locked in. I got to think that's probably where it goes back to if Harden's in there. So maybe if you've got faith, lock it up with the Clippers now, take the 8.5. If you don't, well, then this line is probably only going one way once he's ruled out then.
Yeah, and these injury line moves, Joe, are so aggressive that if Harden were to be ruled in, I wouldn't be surprised, like you say, if it goes, 8, 7.5, 7, 6.5, 6. The game isn't played for another 5 hours. And so I'm somewhat amazed at how aggressive these injury moves are each and every day. I shouldn't be, because they've been this way for the better part of 3 years now. But it could find its way even below 7 if James Harden is ruled in.
Let's see what the chat thinks of James Harden's worth to the line here as we check in with our YouTube peeps there. FB Coach sums it up well and says, Harden is worth squat. That's how much he is valued here in this one. So whether he plays or he doesn't play, the chat is not impressed with Harden. Unless, of course, the chat room was a stripper, apparently, then he'd be worth a little bit more to them, but not now. So way to go there, guys. Impressed with the Harden hate there. You don't get that often. But the Clippers tonight taking on Phoenix should be a good one, and so should one of the other games that it seems to be a lot of chatter in the chat rooms about, and that's going to be one of the 7 o'clock Eastern time tips with the Dallas Mavericks taking on the Charlotte Hornets. This opened up 10.5. This is now 13, I believe, here. And this Dallas train is fun to watch, isn't it, though? I mean, the Houston took them. Who was it they played over the weekend there? But it was a hell of a comeback there and a great job in overtime, right? Was it Houston they played?
Yeah, it was the double overtime game, right?
147, 136. Yeah. Impressive stuff here, because you never, even down double digits, Veno, we've talked about this. Being down 20 in an NBA game means absolutely nothing anymore here, because it never felt like Dallas didn't have a chance of getting into that game or winning it. And sure enough, that's exactly what they did. 4th game in 6 days for Dallas here. Charlotte does have the rest, but this is, I think, the final game of a homestand for them. Season at home is pretty much over for Charlotte. So will you get enough effort out of Charlotte here? Should we be looking at an over no matter what here at 223? What are you thinking in this one?
Well, I would think so, Joe. And that's despite the fact that the Dallas Mavericks are the number one defensive rated team over the course of the last 15 games in the NBA. But I would still play over here because what Charlotte has subtly done is just take to offense only at this point in time, right? Steve Clifford's on the way out. He's going to the front office. They're searching for their new head coach. But Clifford, with his lineup, decided that Grant Williams at 6'7", if he's that, I think he's more like 6'6", will be our new center. And what we're going to do is run up and down the floor. What that's resulted in is it resulted in Charlotte climbing the NBA offensive rating slots by 7. They went from like 23rd to 16th in offensive rating, piling on points. Brandon Miller has had some big games, playing very fast. As you mentioned, it is a form of, we really don't care. Let's see what we got. Let's go ahead and run the last few games and see if we can outscore people. With that being said, they play zero defense. They're way too small. Dallas likely can have their way offensively. And that's why you saw this push from 218. Some guys were paying attention to what Charlotte's been doing as of late. They're not the best shooting team of all. And you probably have to worry about that a little bit if you play a full game over. But again, Dallas is on the first of back-to-backs. Don't know how much defensive energy they'll exert here. I think they have Miami tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe they play hard offensively and get a lead and go into a shell. So I think that over has to be the way to look here. Again, Charlotte has just indicated to us that this is the way we're going to play the rest of our games. We're going to play extreme tempo. Their pace numbers are up. Their scoring numbers are up. And Dallas certainly can score with anybody.
Yeah, and it's funny, it seems to be a lot of concern in the chat room. I know Lee just hopped into our YouTube channel there and goes, I don't trust Dallas to win by 20, or really double digits in general, but they have been better, and the D has been better, and I agree 100%, but motivation, my goodness, that's going to be the question in this one here. And do we trust Charlotte enough? Is Charlotte going to get enough points to even get this thing? Are they going to do their part to get it up and over full game? I am seeing a couple of, I think, first half consideration here with Charlotte and Dallas as well. I don't hate that look on this one here. Also, Eric Jones on YouTube Shorts telling us 1-11 under spot for Charlotte here tonight. So it's certainly been profitable to back the under in this spot. This is the 8th of their final homestand, 8th game in an 8-game homestand here. And I do believe what we say, Veno, this is going to be the 4th in 6 here for Dallas. So they've been a little weary too. All of that goes, well, maybe the under's not a bad look here in this one for Charlotte and Dallas. And don't forget to hit that like button. Those of you guys joining us here, we do have some line movement here we're going to tell you about coming up, including the Contrarian Gods had called in earlier. If you're just joining us, the Chicago Bulls is who they're looking at. Thinks there's a little bit too much love for the New York Knicks, and I'm starting to see fives pop up across the board here, Veno. I don't think that's a shock with Anunoby obviously looking like he's going to go for the Knicks, but I'm kind of with the Contrarian Gods here on the Knicks on the road against the Bulls, laying 5 with no real injury concerns for the Bulls is interesting. We also told you that we know Horford and Porzingis out for the Celtics. This line has flipped from -2 to Boston and now -3.5 for the Bucks. The total also, Veno, in this one, looks like, believe it or not, it's starting to creep down a little bit. 228.5 before, starting to see some 227s popping in some places, which is interesting. And also the total for the Orlando and Rockets game, that is being steamed up here, 216 now, popping up in some spots here, Veno. We mentioned this game earlier. I don't know. Rockets at home, they're going to play enough interference not to get this game to go over the two. I mean, it was 213, and now we're seeing 216s. I tend to agree with it here, don't you?
Yeah, and we talked about the defensive numbers over the course of their last 5 games. Yep. They just haven't been there defensively at all, and they play with pace. The question you always ask is, will Orlando move quick enough to get this thing up and over. And again, the Franz Wagner question mark there sort of makes me hesitate. But then again, that push toward the over may be an indication that he's a go here. We just haven't received official word. So I couldn't play it under, Joe. Probably would look to play it over. The Rockets playing out the string here. Real quick, back to the Dallas Mavericks
Sure.
in that game against Charlotte. If the Clippers do lose tonight, then they hold on to that 4 spot by only 1 game over Dallas with 5 to go. And I know Dallas has really wanted to push to get home floor. So the Clippers could be playing with fire if they sit too many guys here, because Dallas, as you said, they've been fun to watch lately. They've been playing really well. They're as confident as they've been. And it seems like they have finally figured out how to do the Kyrie Luka thing, and Kyrie sort of playing now as he did with LeBron back in Cleveland as a very, very strong 1A to 1. It's really working for Dallas at this point in time. And there's a lot of, guys that were involved in that trade, right? PJ Washington comes back to Charlotte. And on the Charlotte side, Grant Williams, who the Mavericks could not stand personally, is going to play against Dallas. It'll be interesting from that perspective as well.
Yeah, a couple of interesting numbers here from the chat room here involving, in fact, I believe that, let's see here where they were. I believe 220 or more coming up to overs. No, I can't find it there. We got 27 chat rooms here, and I can't figure out what we did with the one stat I wanted to relay to you guys here. But the reality is, there it is. A Life in Vegas telling us Knicks opposition, by the way, 16-3 to the under with OG in the lineup. He will be back there. And you mentioned it earlier, Veno. That is a different team with him on the court, pre-trade, post-trade. And then, of course, the injuries they've had to deal with. They are a much, much different offense and defensive team with him on the court here tonight. So, I get at, 212.5 is that total there? It's not like Billy Donovan going to have these guys running up and down the court a whole lot now, but I think Caruso is key here because I don't think they have anybody else that can actually guard Brunson. That would be the only thing I'd be worried about.
Yeah, well, it's so true. He's their best defensive player. No question about it as far as perimeter guys go. And you do need somebody to try and slow down Jalen Brunson. It probably takes on a playoff type atmosphere. Both teams need it. We talked about Orlando, maybe climbing past Milwaukee. The Knicks are in the same exact spot as Orlando, 1 game behind Milwaukee. So if Boston beats the Bucks tonight and the Knicks were to win here, guess what? All of a sudden the Knicks are sitting in second place and they just beat Milwaukee. I don't know how the season series went overall. I don't have it in front of me, but it could be where the Knicks hold a tiebreaker over the Bucks and could be a 2 seed. So in some of these games, there is an awful lot at stake for these teams. Question is, are they going to cover 5 against what should be a motivated Bulls team as well? They've got their own issues in that 9-10 spot.
I am with you 100% here. All right, a couple more questions here, guys, before we get out of here. We are seeing OKC now starting to move a little bit here as they are taking on the Sacramento Kings tonight. Keegan Murray still listed as questionable. We know SGA is in. We know Jalen Williams still questionable here. And I do think, obviously, SGA, huge. The fact that he is a go in this game for the OKC Thunder here, Veno, it makes... I get it. Makes total sense here that the market would start to move towards them. But boy, oh boy, does me or does OKC feel like maybe they're running out of gas a little bit here? The total, by the way, is also starting to creep down here, up as high as 228. Now I'm starting to see 226s in the marketplace. Does it feel like if SGA ain't 100% healthy, they might have some issues, this team?
Well, they said a couple of weeks ago they were going to monitor him. And I guess what they meant by monitor was we're going to sit him for 6 or 7 games because he hasn't played in quite some time. Does he come back without the rust? I'm not sure. Sacramento has their own issues, Joe, on this road trip. I talked about it when they started this thing. I just can't play Sacramento, even though they beat the Nets by 40. But what is Brooklyn actually? When you don't have Kevin Huerter and you don't have Malik Monk, two of your best scoring options aside from Fox and Sabonis. I don't know what else they have. Keegan Murray is sporadic at best as far as scoring is concerned. And the Kings have had kind of a mediocre trip, which actually is good, keeping their head above water. Again, SGA's announced, and here goes the line, right through the roof. I guess the early money figured he was worth 3 points because I think it went from 2.5 to 5.5. And from what I see, Keegan Murray is in that new NBA injury category called available. He's available tonight, so I would think he plays. It's hard to tell. I wouldn't play Oklahoma City first half, even though they've been a really, really dominant first half team, just because you don't know what kind of rust SGA might have to shake off. But if Jalen Williams comes back as well, remember they've both been sitting. OKC probably over the course of 48 minutes is 6 points better than Sacramento in their current state.
Yeah, I mean, the numbers are clear here, guys. He's missed 6 of the last 7 games for OKC. They have failed to cover, I believe, in the last 4 games. They're 5-15 against the number in their last 20. And a lot of this all coincides with SGA not being on the court or not 100%. I get with him not showing up on the injury report this morning, Veno, where a lot of money started flowing in, but the total coming back down here is interesting. So it's still hovering around 4.5 right now for OKC, but no doubt this feels like I can get a better number once this game starts in-game than maybe right now. Why do all the guesswork here, Veno? Let's see, because he's missed 6 of the last 7. What do we think? He's just going to be he's going to dominate? The Kings are still battling here. So I do think that's a great in-game opportunity there. Keep an eye on that one. Also, shout out Eric Jones, Veno, would like us to talk him off the ledge on YouTube Shorts there. We appreciate it, Eric. Please talk me off. I want to take the Rockets +3, even 3.5. So starting to pop up here now. More than a bucket. He wants to take the Rockets. He would like somebody to talk him off this ledge. And Robert, our producer, you have something for him, I am sure, coming up here in a minute that we can play for him in one word, Veno, which would absolutely talk him off it. But I can't. There's nothing about this Rockets team I want to back, even as a dog at home here. Is there, Veno?
You know, you have had some buzzwords in the last couple of weeks shows I've been on, Joe. Ass, suck.
Yes.
I don't know if that's the word that you want with the Rockets here. Some people don't get where you're leading them to on these shows. You know, if I had played Orlando, I could talk somebody off. I didn't play Orlando, so it's hard to talk somebody off of what they like, which is the Rockets in this instance. I would say, you know, if you're trying to get yourself off of a Rockets play, maybe look at the total. Could be a little bit easier to swallow just playing over and rooting for both teams to score. But the Rockets have taken a downward spiral, and I just don't know. It's a young team, and it's hard for us to project what they're going to do here closing out the season. Do they want to have a strong outing for the home fans on the way out? Or could they care less because their head coach kind of labeled them as soft on the way out? So we'll see. I don't know what that game against the Mavericks, Joe, mindset wise, either it takes a little bit out of you because you gave it everything you had and you lost, or it inspires you to say we're still a good team. So I don't know which way to look. And again, the Wagner injury is key to this, and we don't know what his status is yet.
No, we don't. But Robert, I think you have something for Eric there about the Houston Rockets. What would that be? Yes, that's correct. Absolutely not, Eric. Don't do it, damn it. Don't do it here. Also, big shout out there to Jay Price joining us in the chat room here, and those of you guys on Instagram, including CTBet16 in the house here today. We certainly appreciate it. Guys, don't forget to hit that like button, that subscribe button. Rob Veno locked and loaded, ready to go here on a loaded NBA slate here tonight. Tell the folks what you got rolling over on your page at WagerTalk.com.
Yeah, it's a large card, Joe. Obviously, the NBA took last night off to let the college championship have its spotlight. But tonight I have 3 plays from the NBA, and NBA's been great as of late. I mean, it's been as good as it's been all season long. Last 7 days, number one handicapper at WagerTalk profit-wise. Last 3 days, number one handicapper at WagerTalk profit-wise. Last month has been good. So seeing it pretty clear right now. This last week gets a little bit tricky because you and I have discussed a lot of, are they motivated? Aren't they motivated? Do they care? Don't they care? You have to weed through all of that. But 3 plays tonight that I took out of this, I think, 13-game card that I like quite a bit. So once again, you can find them over at my homepage at WagerTalk.com.
All right, good stuff there. Also, big shout out to the, oh boy, I'm sorry. We're seeing a line move here last minute, guys. That's why we call it the NBA update, afternoon update here. It looks like there's an awful lot of love with the San Antonio Spurs happening in the marketplace right now. And I get it there, but this thing is 5.5 now, Veno. What? Granted, they're playing Memphis, who has, I believe it's like get a jersey night. Like if you actually pay to go and watch this game, you get to play in it, because they have absolutely nobody left healthy on the Memphis Grizzlies. And this line continues to go towards San Antonio here. I can't even say that it's somebody got ruled out that anybody's heard of, because the whole damn team is ruled out. But the love for San Antonio in this one kind of coming over the top here, Veno. They have been money against the number. Don't get me wrong. They have been a great bet on team over the last month here, but I can't lay that kind of number here with San Antonio. Can you?
Yeah, it's hard, Joe, because they could be 7-0 in their last 7. I mean, they got forced into double overtime by the Sixers and came up short cover-wise. But if we just want to count regulation, they would be 7-0 against the number, all 7 as underdogs, which they are every game. Here, like you said, you're asking them to win by margin against a team that, yes, it's grab a jersey night, but it's kind of been grab a jersey night for Memphis for the last 60 games since Morant went out. It's been very, very difficult. Tonight, I know probably no Desmond Bane, no Jaren Jackson Jr. Yeah. I would probably think under is an even better way to go in this game, because I would have a hard time laying points with San Antonio, despite the fact that, like we just said, they could be 7-0 in their last 7 games against the spread, if not for double overtime the other night against the Sixers.
Hey, so true. Absolutely true. And maybe the best advice here in the chat room today from Javi. Javi Cash says, Titan CT. No offense, Titan CT there. Your line was right below it. You don't have to bet every damn game on the board. And that is absolutely correct. You do not. Big shout out to those of you that took the poll question here today. If the playoffs started tomorrow, which one of these teams do you trust the least? And with 38%, our winner is going to be the Milwaukee Bucks. It looks like the Bucks, and we'll find out here tonight rather quickly here as the Bucks get ready to take on the Celtics. They are now a 3.5, 4-point favorite after being a 2.5-point dog. We're going to see if these Milwaukee Bucks can be trusted right now in this spot at home. And again, we do appreciate you guys stopping in. Don't forget, check out the links below in the description. All game breakdowns. We've got about 5 or 6 in-depth game breakdowns on the slate here tonight. You guys definitely want to check those out. Some best bets included there. And on behalf of Rob Veno, we certainly appreciate you guys hanging with us here for the NBA afternoon update. We'll be back again tomorrow. Make sure you come back and join us. But more importantly, cash those damn tickets, guys. Best of luck with all your plays. We'll see you again tomorrow. Good luck.